Imagine a day dawns, and as you open your eyes, a chilling realization washes over you: you are not truly the master of your own life. The decisions you make, the deep-seated fears that hold you captive, even the automatic ways you respond to others, what if these aren't genuinely your choices? According to the renowned psychiatrist Carl Jung, deep within each of us exists a hidden, potent force. It's a power that operates quietly in the shadows, subtly shaping your thoughts, influencing your actions, and even molding your very identity without you ever consciously realizing its presence. Jung termed this profound entity the shadow self. It represents the discarded parts of you, the thoughts you actively deny, the instincts you suppress, and the raw emotions you pretend simply don't exist. But here's the critical catch: merely ignoring your shadow self doesn't make it vanish. In fact, the less you acknowledge its existence, the more potent and pervasive its influence becomes over you. As Jung famously articulated, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So, the pressing question truly is, are you genuinely in the driver's seat of your existence, or is your shadow self subtly pulling the strings from behind the scenes? By the time you finish engaging with this content, you will not only gain a profound understanding of what the shadow self truly is but also acquire practical strategies on how to confront and integrate it before it has the chance to completely consume you. Have you ever found yourself reacting strongly to a situation, only to later reflect and wonder, why did I do that? Perhaps you experienced an outburst of irrational anger towards someone, felt a sudden surge of jealousy without clear cause, or even sabotaged a promising opportunity, completely baffled by your own actions. Carl Jung believed that these inexplicable, unconscious reactions are direct emanations from your shadow self, the concealed chamber of your mind that houses everything you have been implicitly or explicitly conditioned to disregard. His powerful assertion, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, speaks to this very phenomenon. But what is the deeper meaning behind these words? The shadow self is essentially a repository, meticulously constructed from all the emotions, desires, and thoughts that society, your family, or even you yourself, deemed unacceptable and consequently rejected during your formative years. As a child, you might have been told, "Don't be selfish, nice people don't get angry," or "You shouldn't want too much." So, what was your natural response? You diligently pushed those inconvenient feelings down, convincing yourself they didn't exist. However, herein lies the profound problem: actively ignoring your shadow doesn't cause it to dissipate. Instead, it merely recedes, lurking persistently beneath the surface, subtly influencing your choices and perceptions without your conscious awareness. It compels you to harshly judge others for traits you secretly recognize within yourself. It instigates self-sabotage whenever genuine success or happiness feels uncomfortably close. It manufactures fears and insecurities that seemingly appear from nowhere, casting a long shadow over your life. And perhaps the most unsettling aspect is that the vast majority of people never even realize this intricate process is unfolding. But here is a fundamental truth: your shadow self is not an adversary. It is an integral, undeniable part of who you are. And until you bravely face it, it will continue to exert covert control over your life, manipulating events from behind the curtain. So, how precisely do you confront this hidden aspect of yourself? How do you reclaim true control? The initial and most crucial step is to genuinely comprehend its nature, and that's precisely what we are about to unveil. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self is far more than a mere psychological construct. It is a dynamic, hidden force that actively shapes your thoughts, dictates your actions, and influences your relationships every single day. Visualize your mind as an immense iceberg. The visible tip, gracefully floating above the water's surface, represents your conscious self, the carefully curated version of you that you present to the world. Yet, beneath that surface lies an expanse far vaster, infinitely more powerful, and potentially more influential, something you've likely dedicated your entire life to ignoring. This, precisely, is your shadow self. But where does this shadow originate? From the tender moments of your birth, you began an ongoing education in what was deemed acceptable and what was not. As a child, if you cried excessively, you might have been admonished to stop being weak. If you expressed anger, you were likely scolded with phrases like, "Good kids don't act like that." If you dared to speak up too frequently or assertively, you may have been labeled arrogant or selfish. What was the inevitable consequence? You systematically pushed those aspects of yourself deep down. You painstakingly learned to suppress the emotions, desires, and inherent instincts that simply did not align with society's prescribed mold of who you should be. This is precisely how your shadow self is formed, incrementally, piece by piece. However, here's the profound dilemma: what you suppress doesn't simply disappear into thin air. It merely relocates, migrating into the vast expanse of your unconscious mind, where it patiently waits. And one day, when you least anticipate it, it resurfaces, often subtly but sometimes explosively, resuming its control over you from behind the scenes. Ignoring your shadow doesn't elevate you to a better person. Instead, it condemns you to be a person governed by powerful emotions and impulses you fundamentally misunderstand. Here's an explicit breakdown of how your shadow controls your life without your conscious awareness. Projection. Seeing your own flaws in others. If you've been taught that anger is an inherently negative emotion, you might find yourself disproportionately irritated by individuals who express their feelings freely and openly. If you secretly harbor a wish for greater confidence, you might find yourself resenting people who naturally stand out or command attention. The uncomfortable truth is that the traits and behaviors we judge most harshly in others are, more often than not, the very aspects we adamantly refuse to acknowledge within ourselves. Self-sabotage, blocking your own success. Have you ever been presented with a truly incredible opportunity, only to inexplicably find a way to undermine or mess it up? Have you ever pushed away love, even though it was precisely what your heart longed for? Have you ever endlessly procrastinated on something vitally important, despite knowing the detrimental consequences? This, unequivocally, is your shadow actively working to keep you trapped within your perceived comfort zone or familiar patterns, often preventing growth. Uncontrollable emotional reactions. Have you ever lashed out at someone disproportionately over a trivial matter? Have you ever experienced a sudden, irrational wave of jealousy that caught you off guard? Or perhaps you felt a deep, pervasive fear of failure, even when circumstances were overwhelmingly positive? These aren't merely quirks of your personality. More often, they represent your shadow taking over, hijacking your emotional responses. And here's arguably the most frightening part: the vast majority of people never fully grasp that this powerful dynamic is perpetually at play in their lives. This isn't merely a niche psychological concept, its echoes resonate throughout history. Socrates, for instance, was famously sentenced to death simply for asking too many profound questions. His radical ideas compelled the citizens of Athens to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their society. And instead of engaging with those truths, they chose to silence him. Jung himself firmly believed that the shadow frequently reveals itself through the vivid landscape of our dreams, the grip of our fears, and the intricate patterns of our relationships. If you've ever endured a recurring nightmare or been plagued by an unexplained, persistent fear, your shadow might be desperately attempting to send you a crucial message. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche issued a stark warning: the more vehemently we suppress our authentic nature, the greater the risk of self-destruction. He termed this concept the will to power, suggesting that when we deny intrinsic parts of ourselves, they inevitably erupt later in destructive and uncontrollable ways. Your shadow is not inherently malevolent or evil, it is simply a part of you that has been systematically ignored for far too long. The more you suppress it, the stronger its covert influence becomes. The more you fear it, the more complete its control over your life will be. So, the fundamental question remains: how do you genuinely take back control? The profound answer lies within the practice of shadow work. Allow me to share a vivid story. Michael was universally known as the quintessential nice guy. He was unfailingly polite, agreeable to a fault, and consistently prioritized others' needs before his own. Whenever conflict reared its head, he would instinctively retreat. When someone else unfairly claimed credit for his hard work, he would simply brush it off with a smile. People genuinely admired him for his unwavering kindness and gentle demeanor. But what they couldn't possibly see was the raging storm steadily building inside him. Deep down, Michael felt a profound, simmering resentment. He felt invisible, perpetually overlooked. He observed selfish and aggressive individuals effortlessly getting ahead in life, while he remained stuck, always relegated to the background. Yet, he never once admitted these feelings to himself, he simply couldn't. From a very young age, he had been rigorously taught that anger was inherently bad, that standing up for oneself was selfish, and that being overly ambitious was a sign of arrogance. So, every single time he felt a surge of frustration, he meticulously buried it. Every instance of jealousy was forcefully pushed away. Every impulse to speak up was met with a practiced, internal silence. He genuinely believed he was becoming a better person through this process. But in stark reality, his shadow self was growing steadily, relentlessly stronger with each suppressed emotion. One day, Michael was at work when his boss unfairly blamed him for a mistake. Normally, his reflex would have been to smile, nod, and apologize profusely, just as he always did. But this time, something fundamental snapped within him. Before he even fully processed what he was doing, he lashed out, his voice uncharacteristically sharp and loud, "Why do I always get treated like this? I work harder than anyone here, and yet I'm the one who gets blamed. I'm done." The entire office fell into an stunned silence. His co-workers looked utterly shocked, and even his boss appeared taken aback. Michael was visibly shaking, his heart pounding erratically. He had never, in his entire life, spoken like that before. His boss, instead of arguing, simply asked, "Where did that come from?" And in that singular, potent moment, Michael realized something profound. This wasn't just about today, this wasn't merely about his job. This was years, decades, of suppressed emotions finally breaking free. This was his shadow self, bursting forth and taking control. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He replayed the entire explosive moment over and over in his head. "Where did that come from?" he muttered to himself. And then, with a jolt, it hit him, this raw, powerful anger, his deep frustration, his desperate desire to be seen, to be truly heard, it had always been there. He had dedicated his entire life to suppressing it, pretending it simply didn't exist. But the more he buried it, the stronger and more volatile it became. And today, it had finally detonated. Michael had spent his entire life being unconsciously controlled by his shadow self without ever realizing it. But now, he saw it. And that stark realization changed everything. Michael's story, while personal, is far from unique. How many times have you been overwhelmed by an extreme emotion and later wondered, "Why did I act like that?" How many times have you looked at someone and felt an inexplicable irritation, with no clear reason? How many times have you found yourself sabotaging your own progress just when things were finally going well? These are not random occurrences. This is your shadow self subtly pulling the strings, dictating your responses, and until you bravely face it, it will continue to exert profound control over you. But how, specifically, do you confront your shadow? How do you prevent it from taking over completely? Now that you possess a foundational understanding of what the shadow self is and how it silently influences your life, the truly significant question is, how do you reclaim your power and take back control? Carl Jung firmly believed that the ultimate key to liberating ourselves from these deeply ingrained unconscious patterns lies in a practice he termed shadow work. However, here's where most people fundamentally misunderstand this crucial process. Shadow work is not about destroying your shadow. It is not about attempting to eliminate your fears, suppress your anger, or eradicate your insecurities. Instead, its profound purpose is to achieve a deep understanding of your shadow, to integrate it harmoniously into your conscious self, and ultimately, to transform it into an immense source of personal power and wisdom. Think of it this way, your shadow is not a demon to be exorcised. It is an untamed, neglected part of you that desperately yearns to be understood and embraced. Here's how you can begin the transformative journey of shadow work in 3 powerful steps. Identifying your triggers, the art of projection, ***. Have you ever encountered someone who immediately irritated you, for reasons you couldn't quite articulate? Or perhaps you reacted with disproportionate intensity to something seemingly minor? Maybe you consciously despise arrogance in others, yet deep down, you secretly crave the confidence and assertiveness to truly speak your mind. Perhaps you can't stand selfish people, but in reality, you were raised in an environment that conditioned you to always prioritize others first, often at your own expense. Carl Jung profoundly believed that our most significant triggers, those things that provoke strong emotional reactions in us, are precisely what reveal the parts of ourselves that we have been systematically taught to suppress. This phenomenon is known as projection. Projection occurs when we unconsciously see in others what we steadfastly refuse to acknowledge or accept within ourselves. For instance, if someone's ambition consistently annoys you, it may be because you were taught that desiring success is inherently selfish or unvirtuous. If you find yourself constantly judging others for what you perceive as laziness, perhaps you were raised with an intense pressure to always be productive, never allowing yourself legitimate rest or downtime. If someone's overt confidence bothers you, it could be because you were repeatedly told to stay quiet, avoid attention, and minimize your presence. Here's how you can actively start identifying your personal triggers. Pay close attention. Notice what specifically makes you angry, jealous, uncomfortable, or disproportionately irritated. Instead of immediately judging the other person, ask yourself, what does this reaction truly say about me? Notice patterns. Are the people or situations you frequently dislike similar in a certain, recurring way? The often uncomfortable truth is that the traits, behaviors, or qualities we judge most harshly in others are frequently the very aspects we have buried deep within ourselves. And until you consciously recognize this pervasive pattern, your shadow will continue to exert subtle control over your emotions without your true awareness. Shadow journaling, unlocking the basement of your mind, ***. Think of your mind as a sprawling house. The parts of yourself that you deem undesirable, uncomfortable, or simply don't want to deal with, you metaphorically lock them away in the dark, forgotten basement. You throw away the key, fervently hoping they will simply disappear. But here's the crucial reality: the more you suppress something, the more potent and unruly it becomes. And one day, when you least expect it, it will forcefully find its way out, often in destructive or overwhelming ways. This is precisely why shadow journaling is such an incredibly powerful and transformative practice. It is the deliberate process of unlocking that metaphorical basement door and finally confronting, acknowledging, and understanding what you've been so meticulously avoiding. What exactly is shadow journaling? It's the sacred act of writing down your raw, unfiltered thoughts, the thoughts you would never dare admit out loud, the ones that truly scare you, embarrass you, or make you deeply uncomfortable. Here's a simple yet profound way to engage in shadow journaling. Find your sacred space. Seek out a quiet, private place where you feel completely safe and certain that no one will see what you are writing. Ask the deep questions. Begin by asking yourself open-ended questions like, what emotions do I consistently suppress? What aspects of myself do I hide from others? What desires do I feel guilty about? Write without censor. Commit to writing down every dark, ugly, uncomfortable, or unsettling thought that arises, without any censoring or judgment. Allow yourself the freedom to fully feel these emotions, rather than immediately pushing them away. Through this process, you might uncover layers of resentment you've buried for years, confront jealousy you've expertly disguised as indifference, or identify fears that secretly influence every major decision you make. And here's the liberating truth: your shadow isn't inherently evil. It's simply the part of you that was never fully accepted, nurtured, or understood. The more you genuinely listen to it, acknowledge its presence, and strive to understand its origins and motivations, the less coercive control it will ultimately have over you. Most people instinctively try to fight their shadow. They declare, "I need to stop being angry," or I have to get rid of these fears. But Jung passionately taught that true strength and personal power don't emanate from rejection, they emerge from profound integration. Your shadow is not your adversary, it is an undeniable part of you. And much like any abandoned or neglected child, all it truly desires is to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. Consider it in this illuminating way: if you ignore your shadow, it will exert unseen control over you. If you fight your shadow, it will inevitably fight back with equal or greater force. But if you choose to accept your shadow, truly acknowledge and understand it, you can finally reclaim your inherent power. Integration, becoming whole, ****. How do you actively integrate your shadow into your conscious self? When a challenging emotion arises, resist the urge to immediately suppress it. Instead of pushing away anger, pause and ask yourself, why do I feel this? What is this anger trying to communicate to me? Instead of denying jealousy, inquire, what does this jealousy say about what I truly want or value? What need is it highlighting? Engage in an internal dialogue with your shadow, as if it were a distinct, separate part of you. You might say something like, I see you. I acknowledge you. I accept you. But you do not control me. This simple yet powerful act of recognition subtly shifts power from your unconscious mind back to your conscious awareness. Furthermore, learn to harness your shadow's raw energy as potent fuel. If your shadow holds intense anger, intentionally transmute that energy into focused strength or righteous assertiveness for positive change. If it harbors deep insecurity, channel that awareness into cultivating self-compassion and understanding. If it manifests as fear, transform that fear into courage and calculated action. Because here's the profound secret: the very moment you cease fearing your shadow, it loses its coercive power over you completely. Ultimately, shadow work is not about discarding who you are to become someone entirely new. It is about the profound process of becoming whole. The liberating truth is that you are not solely defined by your strengths, you are not just your light. You are also your darkness. And once you courageously embrace all of yourself, your conscious self and your shadow alike, you will finally experience genuine liberation. Carl Jung's wisdom echoes, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people spend their entire lives feeling perpetually stuck, repeating the same destructive mistakes, reacting in the same self-defeating ways, and unconsciously sabotaging their own success. They label it bad luck. They shrug and say, this is just how I am. But the truth is, it's not fate. It's not luck. It is their unaddressed shadow, covertly controlling them from the unexplored depths of their mind. Now, you stand at a pivotal choice. You can continue to ignore your shadow, pretend it doesn't exist, and allow it to manipulate your life in ways you don't even comprehend. Or, you can bravely face it, consciously integrate it, and transform it into an unparalleled source of strength, wisdom, and authenticity. The more you suppress your inner darkness, the more powerfully it controls you. But the more you consciously accept it, the more genuinely free you become. Because here's the ultimate truth: your shadow is not your enemy. It is, in fact, your hidden key to profound self-awareness, unshakable confidence, and deep personal transformation. So, the real question that begs an answer is, what part of yourself have you been diligently avoiding? What is your shadow desperately trying to tell you? Let me know your reflections in the comments below, because understanding your shadow is the very first, transformative step to truly taking back control. And if you found this exploration insightful, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into psychology, philosophy, and the hidden forces that shape your mind. We are just getting started on this journey. I'm done being blamed. Michael's voice, usually quiet and reserved, cut through the air. The entire office fell silent, a collective gasp hanging heavy. His co-workers stared, visibly shocked, and even his formidable boss seemed momentarily taken aback by the sudden outburst. Michael was trembling, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He had never spoken with such raw vehemence before. His boss, instead of retorting, simply uttered, "Where did that come from?" In that precise moment, a profound realization washed over Michael. This wasn't merely about the frustrations of today, nor was it just about his job. This was an eruption of years, decades, perhaps, of suppressed emotions finally breaking free. This was his shadow self, long contained, asserting its undeniable presence and taking control. That night, sleep proved elusive. Michael replayed the scene over and over, the boss's question echoing in his mind. Where did that come from? And then, it hit him with undeniable clarity, it had always been there. His simmering anger, his deep-seated frustration, his profound desire to be truly seen, to be genuinely heard. He had dedicated his entire life to suppressing these feelings, meticulously pretending they didn't exist. But the deeper he buried them, the stronger they became, like a coiled spring tightening under pressure. Today, finally, it had exploded. Michael had lived his entire life subtly controlled by his shadow self, completely unaware of its power. But now, he saw it. And that vision, stark and undeniable, changed everything. Michael's story, while personal, is far from unique. How many times have you been swept away by an intense emotion, only to wonder afterward, why did I act like that? How often have you encountered someone and felt an inexplicable irritation, with no apparent reason? Or perhaps you found yourself sabotaging your own success just when things were finally falling into place. These aren't random occurrences, they are manifestations of your shadow self, deftly pulling the strings from behind the scenes. And until you bravely confront it, it will continue to exert its profound, often unseen, influence over you. But how does one confront their shadow? How do you prevent it from taking over and dictating your reactions? Now that you grasp the concept of the shadow self and understand how it subtly influences your life, the crucial question becomes, how do you reclaim your power and take back control? Carl Jung, the eminent psychiatrist, firmly believed that the key to breaking free from these unconscious patterns lies in a process he termed shadow work. However, here's where many people misunderstand its true nature. Shadow work isn't about destroying your shadow, it's not about eradicating your fears, anger, or insecurities. Instead, it's about profoundly understanding your shadow, consciously integrating its various parts, and ultimately transforming it into an invaluable source of personal power. Think of it this way, your shadow isn't a malevolent demon to be exorcised, it is an untamed, powerful part of you that simply yearns to be understood and acknowledged. Here's how you can begin your journey of shadow work in 3 powerful steps. Step 1. Identify your triggers, the mirror of projection. Have you ever met someone who immediately irritated you for no discernible reason, or found yourself reacting with disproportionate intensity to something seemingly minor? Perhaps you openly despise arrogance in others, yet deep down, you secretly crave the confidence and boldness to speak your own mind without hesitation. Or maybe you can't stand selfish people, but in reality, you were raised in an environment that taught you to always put others first, often at your own expense. Carl Jung posited that our biggest emotional triggers are often powerful signposts, revealing the very parts of ourselves that we have been conditioned to suppress. This phenomenon is known as projection. Projection occurs when we unconsciously see in others what we steadfastly refuse to acknowledge or confront within ourselves. For instance, if someone's ambition consistently annoys you, it might be because you were taught, perhaps subtly, that wanting success for yourself is inherently selfish. If you find yourself constantly judging others for their perceived laziness, it could stem from an upbringing where you were always expected to be productive, never truly allowing yourself the grace of rest. And if someone's unbridled confidence bothers you, it might be because you were repeatedly told to stay quiet, conform, and avoid drawing attention to yourself. To begin identifying your triggers, start by paying close attention to what makes you feel angry, jealous, or deeply uncomfortable. Instead of immediately judging the other person, pause and ask yourself, what does this intense reaction truly say about me? Begin to notice patterns. are the people you intensely dislike or feel triggered by similar in a specific way? The uncomfortable truth is that the very things we despise most in others are often the unacknowledged aspects we have deeply buried within ourselves. And until you recognize and accept this pattern, your shadow will continue to control your emotions without your conscious awareness. Step 2. Embrace shadow journaling, unlocking the basement. Imagine your mind as an expansive house. The parts of yourself that you find difficult, shameful, or simply don't want to deal with, you metaphorically lock them away in the deepest, darkest corners of the basement. You throw away the key, desperately hoping they'll just vanish. But here's the crucial insight: the more you suppress something, the more powerful it becomes in the unconscious. And one day, when you least expect it, it will forcefully find its way out. This is precisely why shadow journaling is such an incredibly potent tool. It's the deliberate process of unlocking that metaphorical basement door and finally, courageously, facing what you've diligently been avoiding. So, what exactly is shadow journaling? It's the act of writing down your raw, unfiltered thoughts, the ones you'd never admit out loud, the ones that scare you, embarrass you, or make you deeply uncomfortable. Here's how to do it effectively. Find a quiet, private place. Ensure no one will see what you're writing, creating a safe space for vulnerability. Ask yourself what emotions do I consistently suppress, or what thoughts do I always push away? Write everything down. Let every dark, ugly, and uncomfortable thought that surfaces flow onto the page without any self-censorship. Don't edit, don't judge, just write. Allow yourself to feel. Instead of pushing these emotions away as you normally would, consciously let yourself feel them fully. Through this process, you might uncover years of buried resentment, a pervasive jealousy that you've cleverly disguised as indifference, or deep-seated fears that secretly influence every major decision you make. And here's a liberating truth: your shadow isn't inherently evil. It's simply the part of you that was never fully accepted, acknowledged, or allowed to express itself. The more you listen to it, acknowledge its existence, and genuinely seek to understand it, the less control it will exert over your life. Step 3. Integrate your shadow, from rejection to wholeness. Most people instinctively try to fight their shadow. They might declare, "I need to stop being so angry," or "I must get rid of these fears." However, Jung taught that true power does not emerge from rejection, it flourishes through integration. Your shadow isn't your adversary, it is an undeniable, essential part of who you are. And much like any abandoned child, all it truly yearns for is to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. Consider this powerful paradigm: if you ignore your shadow, it will surreptitiously control you. If you actively fight your shadow, it will relentlessly fight back. But if you bravely accept your shadow, you can finally reclaim your inherent power and agency. How do you integrate your shadow? When an emotion arises, don't suppress it. Instead of pushing anger away, genuinely ask, "Why do I feel this way?" Instead of denying jealousy, inquire, "What does this emotion reveal about what I truly desire or value?" Talk to your shadow. Treat it as if it were a distinct, separate part of you. Say aloud, "I see you. I accept you. But you do not control me." This simple yet profound act consciously shifts power from your unconscious mind to your conscious awareness. Use your shadow's energy as fuel. If your shadow holds intense anger, channel that raw energy and transform it into strength, into determination. If it manifests as insecurity, convert it into a profound quest for self-awareness and understanding. If it harbors fear, transmute it into courage and resilience. Because here's the ultimate secret: the very moment you stop fearing your shadow, it loses its formidable power over you. Shadow work isn't about discarding who you are to become someone entirely new. It is about the profound journey of becoming whole. The truth is, you are not solely your strengths, you are not merely your light. You are also your darkness, your imperfections, your hidden depths. And once you bravely embrace that entirety, you will finally experience genuine liberation. Carl Jung once sagely observed, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Many people spend their lives feeling perpetually stuck, repeating the same destructive mistakes, reacting in predictable, unhelpful ways, and unknowingly sabotaging their own success. They label it bad luck or resignedly declare, "This is just how I am." But the truth is, it's not fate, and it's certainly not luck, it's their unacknowledged shadow controlling them from the deepest recesses of their mind. Now, you stand at a crossroads with a profound choice. You can choose to ignore your shadow, pretend it doesn't exist, and allow it to subtly control you in ways you may never fully comprehend. Or, you can choose to face it, courageously integrate it, and transform it into an unparalleled source of inner strength. The more you suppress your own darkness, the more it will dictate your path. But the more you consciously accept it, the more truly free you become. Because here is the enduring truth: your shadow is not your adversary, it is your invaluable key to self-awareness, authentic confidence, and profound transformation. So, the real question that lingers is, what part of yourself have you been diligently avoiding? What is your shadow earnestly trying to tell you? Let me know in the comments below, because understanding your shadow is indeed the very first, transformative step to truly taking back control. And if you found this exploration insightful, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into psychology, philosophy, and the hidden forces that shape your mind. We are just getting started on this journey.